Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
Just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up. And when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
It makes it almost impossible for their bats to get going or have any confidence in the locker room when you're getting absolutely hosed on the defensive end.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It's their defense, man. Mika Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt.
You saw Luka. I'm very intrigued to see how Luka bounces back after his first playoff series.
For next season, there are massive free agents like Giannis. And if Giannis goes to a team like the Heat, like I said before, I expect them to win the championship. 4 teams who could win the AFC in my mind, legitimately. Steelers, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert and Tony Pollard.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life.
So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing to have the Astros win a World Series and then you have to hear them.
Now LeBron's a 4-time champion and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
I think you have 2 established number 1 wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and I think you have an emerging star in CeeDee Lamb.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 59th episode. Make sure to check out our 58 episodes and let us know what you've thought. What's your favorite one been so far? What's your worst favorite one? Answer is none of them. So for our 59th episode, before we get to that, little change in schedule. We are postponing the play-in review. We're going to do that sometime in the future. But it's all about the playoffs right now as they're set and they're ready to go in less than an hour. And also make sure to check out our Miss Coach Ackerman interview as it's great. And she played basketball at the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. But and the points for this is the same as the NHL. So we get a point for the series if we get the number of games right, and 2 points if we get the winner right. So, Austin, I'll let you start off with your picks.
Yeah, so my picks for the first round. So the first series we will discuss is Bucks versus Heat. I have this in a gentleman's sweep. Bucks win in 5. The next series it's Clippers versus the Mavs. I have the Clippers winning in 6. The next series is Celtics versus Nets, another gentleman's sweep where I have the Nets winning in 5. Nuggets versus Blazers, I have the Nuggets winning in 6. 76ers versus Wizards, I have the 76ers winning in 7. Lakers versus Suns, I have the Suns winning in 7. Hawks versus Knicks, I have the Knicks winning in 7. And Jazz versus Grizzlies, I have the Jazz winning in 6. This will be a great first round. The reason why I have the Nets winning in 5 and the Bucks winning in 5 is I just don't trust the Celtics and Heat's game right now. And I really feel like the Bucks are coming into their own. I feel like Giannis will take the next step this year in the playoffs and get through a tough opponent. And then I see a lot of close series. Wizards and Sixers. As long as Bradley Beal is healthy, I see no reason why the Wizards can't win at least 2 games. But I'm giving them 3. However, I'd be very shocked if they ended up winning the series, as the 76ers are on paper the much better team. I don't know what all the hype is in the Lakers versus Suns series. I think LeBron and AD will push this to 7, but I'm taking the Suns in 7. Chris Paul, I think, will propel this series to a victory for them, and DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker will get their first playoff victory. Hawks versus Knicks, close series. I have the Knicks winning. Home court advantage, I think, will play a big role. Madison Square Garden should be bumping in that Game 7, even with less than crowd. And then I feel like the Grizzlies can pull off 2 games against the Jazz, especially with how they're playing right now. They just beat the Spurs by 4. The Spurs are a good team. They just beat the Warriors by a couple. The Warriors are a good team. I think they beat the Warriors by 5. And, it's just I think it's going to be a great first round. I have no sweeps, 2 gentlemen sweeps, and then the rest are either 6 or 7. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, it is going to be a great first round. Definitely some close series. I'll start off with my Heat and Bucks. I agree. I have the with the Bucks winning, but I actually have it going to 7. So I have Bucks winning in 7. I think it's going to be a very heated rivalry, and I think that's why it's going to drag it all the way to 7. Next, we have the Mavs and Clippers. This one I am so excited for. I didn't want to play the Nuggets. I wanted to play the Clippers. Some Mavs fans may disagree with me about that matchup, but I just am excited for this series. So I have Mavs versus Clippers with the upset. I have Mavs beating the Clippers in 7 games. I go with this because the Clippers have new players, but for me, when the Mavs played the Clippers, they did lose KP, but that's not the biggest addition, quote unquote, this year with KP because KP may get injured. The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson, also Josh Richardson, but and then just we have 3 centers now. If you're even excluding KP, so if you include KP, that's 4: Boban, Dwight, Cauley Stein, and KP. So that's some addition. They only had 1 center, but the main thing is Brunson. Brunson has just been a great player off the bench and sometimes starting. So that's why I have the Mavs winning in 7, and then Luka's just going to be Luka. Hopefully, we see him do what he did last year in the playoffs. Next, I have Celtics versus Nets. I agree with you, Austin, and I did not look at your thing, and you did not look at mine. I have the Nets in 5. Um, Jaylen Brown is a bad injury for them. And then Tatum played really well against the Wizards, but I don't know if he can continue to replicate that success. And because that's what they need if they want to win a couple more games. So I have him going off one night, but I think he's just going to get tired. So that's why I have the Nets winning in 5. Then Blazers versus Nuggets. This is the Western Conference Final. No, Western divisional round. It was a divisional round from I think 2 years ago when Seth Curry was on the Blazers versus the Nuggets. I have the Blazers. I think CJ, Dame, and Anthony, they're going to do great. So I think that just outbeats the star power of Nikola Jokic because he doesn't have Jamal Murray. But I think it's going to be a tough series. So that's why I have Blazers in 7, going all the way to 7 games. Again, just shows how tough this first round is this year. Then the Wizards and Sixers. I think Sixers win in 6, but I think Beal and Westbrook, they're going to try their best, and I have them winning just 2 games in that series. And then Lakers versus Suns. It's just, you mentioned the hype. I think it's just, we've never seen LeBron we've sort of seen LeBron in this situation. Actually, I don't think we have, but it's just the Suns are a great team, and then I don't see the Lakers going quietly. There are some tough matchups with Davis, and then versus Aiden, and then of course you got Chris Paul. So because of that, it's just tough matchups, and I don't think the Lakers go quietly. I have the Lakers winning in 7. And then I have the Hawks and Knicks. This one's going to be good, but I have the Knicks winning in 6. I just think the Knicks are just going to outbeat the Hawks. Now, the Grizzlies versus Jazz. Even though it's a tough series, I think the Grizzlies are going to be a little tired, and the Jazz are going to come in really hot. So I have the Jazz sweeping the Grizzlies to finish it out. What are your thoughts, Austin?
Yeah. You do have a sweep. I don't. It's going to be interesting. I just feel like John Morant and that crew will at least get a game, and I think they'll win 2. But we can move on to the second round of the playoffs, and the first one I'll discuss is the Bucks versus the Nets. I have the Nets winning in 6. This is a year where the Nets have to win a championship for them to be viewed as competent, in my opinion. They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust because of what they've done. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and we had them on our championship or bust before they acquired Blake Griffin or James Harden. So they're definitely a team that needs to make the conference finals at least, and then definitely make it to the finals in some people's eyes. But interesting pick. I'll get to mine later on, so I'll let you continue.
Yeah, and the next one is the Knicks versus Suns. Knicks versus 76ers, my bad. Knicks versus 76ers. I don't know why I said Suns. And I have the 76ers winning in 5. I really don't see how the Knicks can win more than one game. Maybe they grab game 3 or 4 at home. Madison Square Garden, we'll get to see a second round win, in my opinion, but only one. And the 76ers will be moving on to the conference finals. Next would be between the Clippers and Jazz. I have the Clippers winning in 6, going to their first Western Conference Finals ever, and which would be a great step forward for this organization. And then Nuggets versus Suns. I have the Suns winning in 5. Without Jamal Murray, I just don't see how the Nuggets can do it. Will Barton's also been injured, and while I do think the Blazers can't run with Jokic, DeAndre Ayton, I think, will step up in this series and shut down Jokic enough for this to work out for them. What about you?
Yeah, that's very interesting what you said about Aiden and Jokic. And Jokic has just been on terror, but he may start running. He's gonna need you need a guy like you need a partner. That's why LeBron teams up with a bunch of people because he understands he needs a Robin or a similar guy to him in his stature, not better than Robin. So I guess Batman. And he kind of has that in AD. So Nikola Jokic is just having a tough battle because he's missing his Robin, and that's Jamal Murray. But I'll talk about the Bucks versus the Nets. I actually have the Bucks winning against the Nets in 7. So, um, very reminiscent to me of the Clippers last year, who had gotten a lot of hype. I just don't think the Nets can work. I think something's going to happen, and I just feel the Bucks really want to do it because they got Holiday, and you have Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis. So I think Giannis is determined to get to a conference finals and maybe the finals. So I just have the Bucks winning in 7. The Nets still need to build up that chemistry, maybe next year. Then I have Sixers versus the Knicks. I am going one more game more than you. I have the Sixers beating the Knicks in 6. That's a tough thing to say. Sixers versus Knicks in 6. But Sixers, I think they're just going to have some trouble because I think the Knicks are going to play well defensively. And so I have them grabbing 2 games. And then Portland versus the Lakers. I'm tough on this one because I'm still believing in the Lakers. So I have the Lakers winning in 6. I think it's going to be tough facing LeBron because I think he's going to be very determined this season in the playoffs just because of the injuries and some of the chirps about him that he hears and puts into his idea of like, oh, I need to get to another championship because I'm a 7th seed and all that. So I have them winning in 6. Then I have the Jazz versus the Mavs. Sadly, I have the Mavs losing in 6 to the Jazz. I think it's going to be tough to get to the rim for Luka, and I think the Jazz are just going to they have a lot more. They are fully built on the bench, while the Mavs still have some moving parts they need to figure out in this offseason. Any thoughts on those picks?
Yeah, I think those are interesting picks, and I'd be surprised to see the Jazz make it this far. However, they are the 1 seed, and I do think they're a little bit underrated, so we'll see how they do. For the conference finals, for me, it's Nets for 76ers. I have the Nets winning in 6 on their home court. And then Clippers versus Suns. I have the Clippers winning in 6 on their home court. Both of the lower seeds here move to the next round, and the Clippers versus the Nets. Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals? Not me, to say the least, as the Nets were in a full rebuild and the Clippers had just gotten Chris Paul, and maybe they would have assumed, but Chris Paul is getting older, and while I do the Suns make it to the conference finals, they don't make it past the Clippers in my mind, and the Clippers go to the finals.
Interesting picks. That definitely would be crazy. 2 teams that have, in my opinion, they're very reminiscent or they're very similar to each other. And reminds me of like the Clippers pulling together that team, and the Nets have done that same thing. Well, they did it actually in the same offseason. It just couldn't happen because KD was injured and all that. So it's just coming together now. So definitely be an interesting series if that's how it turns out. For how I believe it will turn out, I have Lakers versus Jazz. I think this is where LeBron, like having to play in the play-in tournament, at least even though it's one game, I've have them playing a 7-game series, then a 6-game series. So I think they're going to be tired, and LeBron's just going to be tired. So I have the Jazz winning in 6, heading to the finals, just because I think Jazz are going to do well, and Rudy Gobert can do really well defensively against Anthony Davis. Then I have the Bucks versus Sixers. While the Bucks, you do have Middleton, Giannis, and Holiday. I think it just stops here because of the Sixers' defense, and they have a great defense. You have a defensive player of the year candidate in Ben Simmons. I think the Sixers do well defensively because a lot of people have a template now to face Giannis, and I'm sure they have other guys that can stall Holiday and Middleton. So I have the Sixers going to the finals. So my finals would be Jazz versus Sixers, and both the teams win in 6 in the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals. What are your thoughts on that?
Crazy. And for the fans at home, for the listeners at home, if you haven't been keeping track, Kevin and I only have one of the same players in the conference finals, the 76ers, one of the same teams. I have the Suns, Clippers, 76ers, and Nets. He has the Bucks, Sixers, Jazz, and Lakers. So we are differing hard. If one of us goes right, the other one went completely wrong, is what I'm trying to insinuate. And it's going to be a crazy ride to the end. And we can move on to the finals. Where I think the Nets, gentlemen sweep. Nets win in 5. Don't like the matchup here. And I think that James Harden would not pair up nicely compared to Paul George and Kawhi, because I'd have to think that Paul George is guarding KD and Kawhi has to choose between James Harden and Kyrie, and probably it's Kyrie, except James Harden's holding the ball. So I don't know who guards him. And then I just don't think Paul George and crew will carry their momentum. They made it further, and that's where I think Coachy steps in. I don't think Ty Lue's prepared enough as a coach, and while Steve Nash isn't proven either, as a player who was a tremendous passer and was a great coordinator of the game, star player, won 2 MVPs, and definitely deserves to be a Hall of Famer. It's going to be interesting to see how the series goes, but I have the Nets winning in 5. And that will help confirm that this was the right move, and paying all this money and getting all these star players worked.
Wow. That's 5 games for finals.
Oh, forgot to mention it. James Harden is my finals MVP. I feel like he will average at least a triple-double in the 5 games and capture a finals MVP, and to round out a Hall of Fame career from him too.
Ooh, wow. A lot to pick out from there from Austin saying averaging a triple-double, finals MVP, and over his counterparts, KD and Kyrie, and then a Hall of Fame career. So, very makes sense. Very interesting. I'm going to go to my differing finals thing. It would be definitely interesting to see how this plays out, because I think it's the farthest we've ever gone from each other in predictions playoffs in the short history. But I have the Sixers versus Jazz, and I have this game going the full length, 7 games. Going to be a series that's amazing. I have the Sixers falling to the Jazz winning their first ever championship. Just because I think the Jazz, while the Sixers, great defensively, the main battle I see is Joel Embiid versus Rudy Gobert. I think Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate, and Rudy Gobert is a man that is great defensively, won multiple defensive players of the year, shut down the entire league. So I think he's going to do really well. And since I have the Jazz winning, my finals MVP will be Rudy Gobert, because he'll help shut down Joel Embiid. And then Mitchell and Conley and everyone is just going to do well from 3. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting pick. You pointed out perfectly that this is definitely the furthest we've ever been separated by. When we're picking what the playoffs are going to look like, we differed a lot, and it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. As one of us is going to be, well, it could be a mix of both. We're both okay, but I would like it to see one of us burn up in flames and the other person do really well. Whatever one that is, we'll have to wait and see. But I definitely anticipate.
Yeah, considering how my NBA playoff predictions way too early turned out, it's not looking good. But hey, we just gotta keep trying, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll see. Definitely see the points for y'all keeping score. Let us know your thoughts. Points, 2 for the winner, and then 1 for the same amount of games. So you could in total win 3 points. Thank you for listening. And our next episode will be the play-in review that we postponed, talk about playoffs. A lot of stuff to unpack, so we'll be doing an episode next time. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.